Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's look at some real fantasy football teams and try to come up with a way that we can improve these one way or another. But as always, just in case you don't know how you get this done, just in case you don't know what we're doing here, these are new members of the flock on flockfantasy.com. When you sign up to flockfantasy.com, which is, of course, where you can find all my rankings, all the rankings of your favorite fantasy football creators, and all of our premium content. If you use promo code FLOCK, you're going to get 30% off any subscription. And on top of that, with promo code FLOCK in the Mother Flocker tier, yours truly is going to go through and break down your fantasy football team in a podcast. Just make sure that you go ahead and you send your fantasy football team in the Discord under roster submissions. And how you get this roster submissions tab unlocked is you hit the Discord button at the very top of flockfantasy.com or your account page, and it will automatically go through and link your flockfantasy.com account with your Discord account. That way you can send this in here. But let's go ahead and let's dive into our first team. Coming out from G. Echeverria. I'm apologizing now because I know there's no way in hell I pronounced that correctly, but just in case you don't know by now, I am truly an idiot. Very, very sorry, but going to be super excited to go through and check this out. Said, hey Mason, I had the 109 in a 10-team half PPR draft. Typical league settings, we're getting 4 points per passing touchdown. Obviously wanted an elite quarterback tight end, but the quarterbacks went way too early for me, and so did the tight ends. So we tried to get value at other positions. My draft was 2 weeks ago, so I have a lot of time to analyze my draft. I genuinely do love Lawrence's potential this year, but I was wondering, what do you think of the team? I can send over our draft board if you want to see how weird it was. Also, I had to drink a lot while drafting. So did everyone else, which probably explains the weird draft. I mean, no, that just sounds like a lot of fun, my friend. And yeah, definitely if you're in like your regular redraft format, right? Even if we have that plan going in, where maybe we want to go ahead and get the elite level quarterback, get the elite level tight end. You'll every once in a while see a team that's going out there and see a team that, say, takes Mahomes round 1. Then Jalen Hurts all of a sudden goes round 12. Then pick 12. Josh Allen's off at pick 14. You're like, okay, I guess I'm not getting an elite level quarterback. It's obviously very dependent on the league that you're drafting in. But generally, like you were saying, I mean, that's kind of what we're going to be targeting in a league where you only start 1 quarterback, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, a tight end, and 1 flex. Just because wide receiver running back depth's not going to matter too much. But I mean, this looks like a freaking nutso draft in general. I mean, at quarterback, when we are sitting with Trevor Lawrence, and then down there on the bench, we have Deshaun Watson as well. I mean, we are in a very comfortable position overall, right? Where we do have a lot of guaranteed production this next year. What's kind of funny is both these quarterbacks are the caliber, I'd say, you know what? You don't really need a backup, but obviously they're both too good to go through and cut one of them. I mean, maybe if we could trade like Deshaun Watson in a package with someone else in the starting lineup and get a massive upgrade elsewhere, it could make sense. But I mean, going over to wide receiver, this is going to be a position that in this league where you only start 2 and you only have 1 flex. I mean, we're not necessarily incentivized to go out there and build around depth. We really just care about the overall upside. These guys have a crap ton of upside, right? I mean, Jalen Waddle was a top 10 wide receiver in games that Tua played last year. Chris Olave literally looked like Julio Jones, AJ Green as a rookie. Calvin Ridley, last time we saw him on the football field, he was a top 5 wide receiver. And what I also really like to see as well is the fact that we decided to go through and pair Calvin Ridley and Trevor Lawrence together and make that one consolidated bet that the Jacksonville Jaguars passing offense is better than people expect this next season. And then going down to the bench, I mean, we even have some quality depth pieces such as DK Metcalf and Jackson Smith-Njigba. I mean, both of whom could be wide receiver 1s this next year. And we're also making that just one consolidated bet that the Seattle Seahawks are better than people expect. I mean, I'm going to have to double check and yeah, because it looks like this is a 6-team league. This looks freaking nuts. It's a 10-team draft, ladies and gentlemen. This is a 10-team league. Because going over to running back, we see, okay, we didn't sacrifice anything at RB. We have Bijan Robinson. We have Saquon Barkley, who you'd assume that we went round 1, round 2 with. Going down to the bench, I mean, we have a crap ton of running back depth and upside with Kenneth Walker, Dalvin Cook. Going over to tight end, we have both David Njoku and Pat Freiermuth, who I really like in general. Now, I will say, This isn't an underdog draft where we're drafting on the live stream and I'm sitting there halfway through going, oh my gosh, I need to get anybody that can score points. Give me a discount tight end that I think has upside. Give me David Njoku. No, this is a team that we have that is so freaking loaded. I mean, loaded across the board, where it makes a ton of sense for us to go through and make a 2-for-1 deal and get an upgrade in the starting lineup, right? I mean, if we could say go ahead and package together maybe Jackson Smith-Njigba and Pat Frymuth to get a slightly better wide receiver in return, and then parlay that better wide receiver with David Njoku to see if we can get up to Mark Andrews, potentially maybe up to Kelsey, not getting up to Kelsey, but possibly get up to Andrews, get up to Hawkinson. I think that would make a lot of sense for this team where you only have one flex spot and we are just freaking loaded. It's really the only move we can make, right? So if we just map this out and don't pay too much attention to the actual players' names, it's more about the overall thought process of the deal. Just go ahead and package together, say like JSN and Pat Frymuth or JSN and David Njoku and see if we can get to a wide receiver in the tier of like Amari Cooper, see if we can get up there, and we already have Olave, and we already have Ridley, but those around 3 wide receivers in underdog, just maybe even get to like Deebo Samuel, right? And then at that point, go ahead and see if we can package together Deebo Samuel and David Njoku and see the best tight end we can get in return. See if we can go get Mark Andrews at that point. Because overall, I hate to say it, and I know this is a very quick breakdown. I'm super sorry, my friend. Usually we spend a lot more time looking at these than this. But I mean, there's pretty much nothing we can say with this team. It's probably better than any team I've drafted all offseason. Really, the only thing you can look to do in this kind of league is make that 2-for-1, 3-for-1 deal, get an upgrade at tight end. Because, I mean, we're really not going to be sacrificing anything at running back, wide receiver when it comes to the actual starting lineup output on a week-to-week basis. But again, thank you so much for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. I really hope that we were able to help you out in some way here. I really hope you're able to get something from this. And as always, if there's anything I can do for you, please don't hesitate to reach out to me and let me know. I'll be super happy to help you out in any way that I can, especially if there's any way that I can improve flockfantasy.com for you. Super excited about some of the new stuff that we have going over there very, very soon. But thank you again for everything. Now we got a Zachary link design coming out and joining the flock. If y'all don't know, Zach is the one who actually made us the custom emojis for everybody that is a part of the flock with the YouTube membership. So yeah, everybody can we spam the chat? Thank you, Zach. Zach's done so damn much for this channel. But let's go ahead. Let's dive into our next team. This one going to be coming out from a longtime member of the flock in Little Faith, saying 12-team full PPR, 4-point passing touchdown. I drafted 6th. And who would you start assuming Terry McLaurin is out week 1? Okay, so let's go ahead and let's dive into this, my friend. But first, before we look at the actual players, I do want to be looking at the starting lineup requirements as well as the league scoring. So it's going to be a 4-point passing touchdown. It's going to be a full PPR. But outside of that, nothing too out of the ordinary, right? -2 points per interception, -2 points per fumble. Really can't predict that stuff. Super small sample, super just random, honestly, at the end of the day. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to just really make the adjustment based off starting lineup requirements, where we are only going to be starting 1 quarterback, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, a tight end, and a flex. So similar to the last team that we looked at, this isn't going to be a 12-team full PPR league though, but wide receiver depth, really not going to matter. I mean, really the primary focus of a team like this is getting ourselves some top-end running back production, grabbing an elite level tight end if we can, and getting a quarterback with a ton of upside as well. That's going to be the primary focus because wide receiver depth is going to be super easy to come by. So looking at this team, at quarterback, we have Fields. Love to see it. I mean, especially in a 4-point passing touchdown format where we are just trying to go through and we are just trying to optimize for the highest rushing upside possible. Obviously, 4-point passing touchdown league, we don't care as much about the passing volume. When we have Justin Fields, we don't need a backup quarterback. But if you have an IR slot where you're able to put Kyler Murray, I'm completely fine. Now, please, if you are rostering Kyler Murray in your fantasy football league and you do not have him on the IR and instead you just have him on a bench spot, you're wasting a bench spot. For the love of God, don't be doing that. you're better off cutting him because we don't even know if this guy's going to come back. But if you can put him on your IR like you have him here, then we're not wasting that bench spot. We're just rostering someone for essentially free with upside later in the season. Really do like to see it. Now, going over to wide receiver, we have Amari Cooper, we have Terry McLaurin, we have Mike Evans in the starting lineup. Going down to the bench, we are sitting with Odell Beckham Jr. and Nico Collins as upside shots, but not really investing a ton into here. And yeah, it is a little frustrating with the Terry McLaurin injury that maybe we are going to have to make some adjustments. And it's frustrating as well that if you're looking at some of these guys that we have as depth options, someone like Jordan Addison's a wide receiver that we'd be very excited about covering another injury for us in week 6, 7, 8, right? But Jordan Addison, week 1, not necessarily someone that we're pumped to go through and just jam into the starting lineup. You're more so looking at him as a long-term upside play. So if we were looking to replace Terry McLaurin at the beginning portion of the season, I'm going to operate under the assumption that Mike Evans is still going to be starting week 1, despite the Mike Evans contract issues, despite Mike Evans not being a practice. I'm going to assume that Evans is good to go week 1. And in that instance, I think we go ahead and move Mike Evans up to the starting wide receiver slot. And then we'll try to figure out something that we can do here, my friend, at that flex. But going over to RB, we have the elite level running backs, right? We have Bijan Robinson. We have Tony Pollard. These were our first 2 selections. I think that you're going to be in a phenomenal situation, especially in a full PPR league where you can only start up to 3 wide receivers to roll with these guys in the long term. And we also have Elijah Mitchell and Jalen Warren as those depth pieces that we could start if we really needed to, but more so high upside handcuff plays, right? If Najee or CMC were to go down. And going over to tight end, we have Mark Andrews. Definitely like the elite level tight end in this format. I mean, overall, just going to make up a high percentage of your starting lineup output on a week-to-week basis. While at the same time, I mean, we don't necessarily have a super difficult time finding depth wide receivers. I mean, especially if you're looking at how shallow this bench is, right? You only have 4 bench spots in this league. So with only 4 bench spots, I mean, you're in a situation where you possibly could just go through and churn the waiver wire and even week 1 find someone to go through and play for Terry McLaurin. Now, let me ask the live chat what they're thinking. I haven't done a great job of looking at week 1 matchups and trying to think about the reasonable projection that we should have for literally 6 days from now. It's something I'm going to have to look at a little closer in a second. But in the chat, can you please spam, who would you start in the flex spot, assuming Terry McLaurin misses week 1? Are you going to be going with Jordan Addison, Zach Charbonnet, Elijah Mitchell, Odell Beckham Jr., Nico Collins, or Jalen Warren? And I apologize, we have 6 bench spots. Forgot that the screenshot was split into 2 different ways. But please let me know, are you going to go with Elijah Mitchell, Odell, Nico Collins, Jalen Warren, or one of those rookies in either Zach Charbonnet or Jordan Addison? Okay. We have Addison, Odell, Nico, Addison, Odell. Addison, Odell. Addison, Odell. Addison, Odell. I would agree in a full PPR format, you're more likely than not looking to go with the wide receivers. Hopefully we get some clarity going into week 1 on the respective roles that we have from both these players. Until then, it's going to be probably pretty hard to come up with an accurate plan on what we should be doing there at the flex spot. I'll definitely go through and try to give you an update on that, my friend, before week 1 gets here. In terms of actually making any moves when it comes to the roster construction, specifically on the waiver wire, I don't think we do anything. Like we said, we have Kyler on the IR, not wasting a bench spot. We don't need to waste the bench spot with Mark Andrews. I mean, we can go through and just pick up a tight end off the waiver wire if we really need to later in the season. I would rather focus in on high upside wide receiver running back options on the bench, which we're currently doing. And clearly, it's something that we kind of need to do right now, given the fact that we have the McLaurin injury. If we're going to be looking to make any trades going forward, I mean, it's kind of hard, right? Because the roster construction's on point. I think you've done a great job with that. Super well balanced between wide receiver, running back. Justin Fields doesn't necessarily have a stacking option we're super excited about. Of course, if we could trade Terry McLaurin for DJ Moore, that's something that we're going to look to do. But by no means do I want to go through and trade like Amari Cooper for him. Let's say if you can trade Mike Evans for DJ Moore, we would look to do that as well, to just stack with Justin Fields and make the one consolidated bet on that Chicago Bears offense. But from an overall strategy and construction perspective, given the specific league settings that we have here, not only the specific league settings, but at the same time, where we picked in this draft, I think we did a great job with the overall strategy behind everything here. So it's hard to say that we need to be making any moves in particular outside of those small little adjustments we could potentially make. But again, thank you so much, my friend, for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel for so damn long now. And as always, if there's anything I can do for you, please don't hesitate to reach out to me and let me know. I'll be super happy to help you out in any way that I can. But yeah, thank you again for everything. Really do appreciate you. And let me know if there's anything I can do for you. But we're going to skip this screenshot. Screenshot's a little tough. I can do this on my own in a personalized podcast, but nobody here is actually going to be able to see that the way it is other than myself. So we'll move past. I'm actually probably going to do this later today as well in a personalized podcast. We have a super long message to read through, but we'll go ahead and we will get this going for A.T. Perry here saying, hey Mason, 12-team league, full PPR, general thoughts on the team. I drafted Jonathan Taylor, as you can see. Someone offered me Dameon Pierce and Kenneth Walker for Christian McCaffrey, Kareem Hunt. Hell no, we can't do that. Love the content. You're the best. Thanks a lot for the help. No, thank you so much, my man, for being a member of the flock. And I understand, right? If we draft Jonathan Taylor, then at that point, maybe we feel like, okay, well, I'm lacking a starter and I need to go through and I need to make a move right now. Let me sell the stud. Let me sell CMC and let me get back, two quality running backs I can go through and start on a week-to-week basis. I understand the thought process behind it. It's just, in reality, not a move that we can make, especially if we look at the starting lineup requirements here, where it's only one quarterback, two running backs, two wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex. We still have a great starting lineup that we're putting out there week one. So it's not necessarily like we're in a position where depth is, super hard to come by and we're just going to be complete toast. No, you're in a good spot, my friend. Starting off quarterback, definitely in a league with only one flex. I want to prioritize someone that gives us an elite level ceiling. Lamar Jackson does just that. 2019, he was the best quarterback in all of fantasy football. Going down to the bench, a little bit of a deeper bench, which I actually really like to see. We don't have a quarterback. Instead, we are primarily focusing on running backs, wide receivers with upside, which makes a lot of sense. Going over to RB, we currently are sitting with Christian McCaffrey, Breece Hall. Going down to the bench, we have Tyler Algier, Deonta Foreman, Kareem Hunt, Elijah Mitchell, Jonathan Taylor. Now, this is potentially a move that we could look to make, right? Now, in general, I think that this is a pretty damn good running back room in terms of the overall upside that we have later in the season. But at least in the short term, we're going to have some issues here, right? Because in the short term, with Breece Hall, you assume Dalvin Cook has a very large role, and Breece Hall's not a running back that we're super pumped about until possibly weeks 5, 6, 7. And that's kind of the same timeline that you're going to be looking with Jonathan Taylor. Now, of course, with that being said, at least in the case of Jonathan Taylor, we know for a damn fact, actually, I don't want to say that. At least in the case of Breece Hall, we can't start him if we need to for the first month. We can if we need to. We're just not excited about it. So what I would potentially look to do instead, if I had a team that had both Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker on the same squad, is I think it could potentially make sense for us to go ahead and see if we could package together Breece Hall in one of these options that are just, a dart throw, someone with potential upside down there on the bench. Maybe someone like Treylon Burks, maybe someone like Kareem Hunt. I know that owner was asking if you would trade CMC and Hunt for Kenneth Walker, and I don't even remember the other running back, but another mid-level RB. What I think would be interesting for this team that has Jonathan Taylor is if you could go through and trade Breece Hall and Kareem Hunt and get back Kenneth Walker. That way we have the production at the beginning of the season, but we still have the elite level ceiling later on in the year when it comes to Jonathan Taylor's upside, right? Personally, that's what I would be looking for. Now, wide receiver, we may also have an issue at the beginning of the season with the injury of Jerry Jeudy. and that he may not be playing, but we still have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jerry Jeudy, John Dotson looks like he may get a bump up at the beginning of the season with the Terry McLaurin injury. We still have high upside wide receivers down there on the bench like Burks, Elijah Moore, JSN. I like these guys overall, but going back to what we're discussing, potentially with us struggling at the beginning portion of the year, right? Well, this is a team that I really like the value. I really like the long-term upside of. If we're going to be realistic with ourselves, Jerry Jeudy dealing with an injury right now. I mean, don't really know what we should get from him. Breece Hall, I mean, coming off a torn ACL, where you have Dalvin Cook, you don't really know what you're going to get from Breece Hall at the beginning of the season. I mean, going down to the bench, Jackson Smith-Njigba, a wide receiver that's also dealing with his own injury, and a rookie. Treylon Burks dealing with his own injury. Deonta Foreman was dealing with an injury previously. I mean, obviously, Jonathan Taylor on the PUP. So this is a team where we have a lot of options that I like for later in the year in terms of the raw amount of upside that this team possesses. But at the same time, we may struggle at the beginning of the season, which is why I think if we were going to look to make a trade overall, one where we trade Breece Hall in a package with one of those lesser options on the bench, and a 2-for-1 deal, just get someone that's in a similar tier, but we can be excited about at the beginning of the season, I think it's going to line up perfectly for the timeline of this team without going through and sacrificing a lot of the long-term upside, if that makes sense. But outside of that, I mean, it's a great squad. I mean, going over to tight end, we have Kyle Pitts. Completely fine getting discount Kyle Pitts in every league I can. It looks like we probably got him at a massive discount with how many wide receivers and running backs that we have here with this team with upside. Overall, I really like this team, but the name of the game there with that team is let's be 2-2 through the first month of the season. If we can go a month and we can be 2-2 and primarily focus in on potential upside that we have in the long term afterwards, I think that'd be great. Just the one spot we're going to struggle is if we're like 0-4, what are we supposed to do at that point? You know, for 0-4, it doesn't matter if all of a sudden Taylor comes back, Breece Hall takes a step forward. We're already in too big of a hole to really do anything. Okay. So leave the races. How do I join the roster review? Do I have to pay? Yeah, so the roster review tab on Discord is going to be locked for anybody. The only people that are going to have the roster submissions tab to get team broken down like that will be if you signed up to flockfantasy.com with promo code FLOCK and the Mother Flocker tier. We have that on the screen there for you, my friend. Flockfantasy.com also has all my rankings, my top 150 tiers, all the rankings of your favorite fantasy football creators, all the premium content from everybody as well. And yes, if you join promo code FLOG in the Mother Flogger tier, yours truly is going to go through and break down your team in a podcast. But can everybody please spam the chat? Let me know, would y'all like to see a dynasty team breakdown? Would y'all like a dynasty team breakdown on the live stream? Would you rather me do this in a personalized podcast for Joey the Kid later on? Okay. We got yes, yes, no. No, yes. Okay, so it looks like we're split 50-50. So we'll keep the dynasty team breakdowns for the Dynasty Football Flock YouTube channel. We'll go ahead and we'll grab another 2023 team. Let's check this one out from Weston. Weston saying, just finished drafting in my 10-team league, full PPR on ESPN. What are your thoughts? Okay, let's go ahead and let's dive into this. I'm sorry to bother you with this, Weston, but while we're live, we're one like away from hitting 200 likes on this live stream. If you have not done so already, please go down there, drop a like on the stream. Help us get to 200, ladies and gentlemen. But anyway, this is going to be a 10-team league where we're starting one quarterback, two running backs, two wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex. So similar to the other teams that we looked at previously, this is going to be a league where wide receiver depth's not too important. Guys like Hollywood Brown, Michael Pittman, Zay Flowers. I mean, those are guys that maybe are interesting in Dynasty. Maybe they're interesting if you have multiple flex spots and you can start 4 to 5 wide receivers on a week-to-week perspective. But we just can't do it in terms of a 10-team league with only one flex, right? A 10-team league with only one flex, those guys are really never going to move the needle. Even if you draft them as like the wide receiver 40, and then they go out there and they turn into the wide receiver 24, it's still fundamentally not going to make a difference for you. It's still not really going to do anything. So, yeah, please just make sure we're making the adjustment. Here, I want to get the elite level quarterback, the elite level tight end if we can, because that's one of the very few ways we can actually get a leg up on our league mates. Everybody's going to have wide receiver depth. Now, going to the quarterback position, we have Lawrence. I like Lawrence. I mean, if you were in a 12-team league, I'd say he's probably like a mid to high-end QB1. 10-team format, right? I mean, just the bar is going to be so much higher where we're not sitting here saying we're in love with Trevor Lawrence in a 10-team league. Still definitely a strong QB1. You can start him every week regardless of matchup. So we're going to be completely fine not having anybody down at the quarterback position on the bench and just focusing on high upside running backs, wide receivers. But going over to the RB room, we have Bijan Robinson, Kenneth Walker, currently in the starting lineup, which I think we can be very excited about. I mean, y'all know Bijan Robinson is my running back too this season. Long-term upside, we have Breece Hall. We have Khalil Herbert in here for some depth as well. We have Zach Charbonnet for long-term upside. And we also have Jamal Williams here, who I love to see. I'd actually say Jamal Williams, now with the news of the Kendre Miller injury, is someone that we have to go through, and we kind of need to be pushing up to start this next probably the first 2 weeks. I will be interested. So this is that full PPR league, as we were mentioning already. So generally, you are going to be pushing wide receivers up in terms of the appeal for the flex spot in a league like this. But can everybody please spam the chat? Would you go through and would you start Tyler Lockett or Jamal Williams week 1 under the assumption that obviously we have no Kamara who's suspended? And on top of this, Kendre Miller, let's assume he doesn't play with a hamstring injury. Let's assume Miller doesn't play, and let's obviously assume that Alvin Kamara is suspended. Are you going to go Jamal Williams or Tyler Lockett? It's a full PPR format. Non-PPR, it would be Jamal and not even close. But full PPR, I think it's going to be a little closer. But Jamal, Lockett, Lockett, Jamal. Okay, so yeah, it looks like most people are going through and saying Jamal Williams there. Now, let's move over to wide receiver where we have Metcalf, Higgins, Lockett. So we don't necessarily have the elite level wide receiver, right? But we have wide receivers we can feel comfortable starting each and every week. Going down to the bench, we also have JSN, Jacoby Myers, Quentin Johnston. I mean, so at this point, we are sitting with every single Seattle Seahawks wide receiver making one massive bet that the Seattle Seahawks passing offense is way better than the market is expecting this next season. Just very interesting to have all three of those guys. I would be interested in taking someone like Tyler Lockett, who I think has a very high median projection and could be a very good asset in like a 12-team league where you start 3 wide receivers and maybe 2 flexes. There, I love Tyler Lockett. But here, if we could take Tyler Lockett and package him with someone else to maybe get a long-term upgrade, say if we could go Tyler Lockett and trade him with Jamal Williams, who we were just talking about previously, and go get Calvin Ridley to stack with Trevor Lawrence, I think that'd make a lot of sense, right? I mean, just in general, those 2-for-1 deals. Maybe Tyler Lockett and Jackson Smith-Njigba and go get Calvin Ridley in return to stack with Lawrence isn't necessarily a deal that we're super pumped about in a 12-team league with a couple flex spots because we're paying up, we're giving a lot of wide receiver depth to just get that marginal upgrade. But here in a league where you only have, say, 1 flex, 2 wide receivers starting, and it's only a 10-team league as well where the waiver wire options are going to be great, so we'll be able to backfill that open roster spot. I think that could be interesting, my friend. Now, going over to tight end, we currently are sitting with Travis Kelce. With Kelce, I mean, this is the perfect guy to roster in a 10-team league with only 1 flex spot. 100% the direction that we want to go. This is what is allowing us to go ahead and roster as many high upside running backs and wide receivers for the long term as possible, which I think we can be very excited about overall. And in general, I really do like the team. It's just an interesting spot to have every single Seattle Seahawk. We have Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Zach Charbonnet. So we go with the full Seahawks onslaught. I think it would be interesting to potentially take 2 of the 5, trade them, see if we can get a package up with our stacking option at quarterback, someone we're a little bit more excited about in the starting lineup, where the bench depth's not going to matter as much in this format, especially not for this team where we're already so loaded top to bottom. But outside of that, would be interested to see if you have any other options on the waiver wire that we could potentially look at as a more exciting option than Jacoby Myers. So please take a screenshot of your waiver wire, my friend. Shoot me a DM and say, hey, Mason, would you drop Jacoby Myers for any of these guys? And I'll be super happy to take a look at that for you. But I think that's all I have for you in this breakdown. Again, thank you so much, my friend, for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. As always, if there's anything I can do for you, especially any way I can improve flockfantasy.com for you, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Please reach out to me. Let me know. I'll be super happy to do anything you want. But again, thank you. Really do appreciate you. Really hope you have a great day, and really hope we get a draft with you in the live stream sometime soon. But let's see if this team from Bill Webb's is easy to look at. Okay, that is going to be a dynasty league, so we're actually going to go ahead and save that. And let's check out Ost's team here, saying, yo, Mason, if you can give me any advice on my team, I'd really appreciate it. 12-team league, half PPR. My man, thank you so much for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. I'm going to be super excited to go through and check this bad boy out for you. So first thing I want to be looking at, 12-team half PPR in comparison to full PPR. We're going to be a little bit less inclined to start a wide receiver in the flex, but still, that is going to be optimal. But generally in a league with only one flex spot, even if there are 12 teams in comparison to 10, we are still going to be inclined to go out there and get an elite level quarterback if possible, because they're just going to make up such a high percentage of our starting lineup output on a week-to-week basis. And I'm actually thinking there's some kind of point per carry aspect to this league, ladies and gentlemen. There's some type of boosted scoring. There's some type of point per carry element to this. Maybe it's going to be big play bonuses, because Lamar Jackson in this format is projected to drop 38 points. 38. Freaking nuts, my man. Love having Lamar here. And going down to the bench, we're not rostering a backup quarterback. We don't need to roster a backup quarterback when we have Lamar Jackson. We're going to go ahead. We're going to start him every single week, regardless of matchup. And if we were to see an injury, if we were to see anything happen, then at that point, we could go ahead and we can look at the waiver wire to potentially, cover up a few weeks missed from Lamar. Hopefully it does not happen, because I've invested so much freaking so much money into Lamar Jackson this season. Now, going over to wide receiver here, wide receiver depth, not going to be a too big of a deal for me, just because we can only start 3 of them. 12-team league, it's going to matter a little bit more than a 10-team league, though, because it's going to be a little bit harder to come by. So we have Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra St. Brown. So we have 2 elite level wide receivers, that is. We also have Christian Watson down there in the flex, so I really like the upside of. And then down on the bench, we have Rashad Bateman, so we're making the consolidated bet with the Baltimore Ravens offense. We have Jacoby Myers and Treylon Burks as well, and DeAndre Hopkins. So to be honest with you, I would say, especially in a half PPR format in comparison to a full PPR league, when you go with Tyreek Hill and Amon-Ra St. Brown out the gate, right? Because I'm going to assume that these are our first 2 picks in this draft. We just have to be thinking through the rest of this, saying, okay, I'm going to start Tyreek and Amon-Ra St. Brown every single week, regardless, of matchup. The only way that we go through and not start one of these guys is if we have an injury or a bye week, right? So we're talking about these off instances where we don't really have to worry a lot about wide receiver depth. I think we probably plan on starting Christian Watson every week, but he's not like Tyreek Hill. He's not like Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's not guaranteed to be a stud this next season, right? But then we also have the depth of DeAndre Hopkins. So if Christian Watson doesn't get it done for us, we could pivot to Hopkins. We have the upside of someone like Treylon Burks. So when we get to the very bottom end of our roster, we fundamentally need to ask, okay, where is the upside? Is the upside in going through and taking someone like Jacoby Myers, who we know maybe has a high median projection, who we know maybe is pretty much guaranteed to have a role this next season, but at the same time, he's not someone that we're super pumped about his overall upside of? Or do we want to take a swing on a depth running back? But you actually sent us your waiver wire, so we're going to be able to go ahead and check that out for you. Because out running back, we have upside. We have Dobbins, we have Javonte. Down there on the bench, we have Gibbons and Devon Achane. But unlike what we have at wide receiver, we have no certainty at the very top. I can't sit here and say, oh yeah, Javonte Williams, J.K. Dobbins, surefire studs, right? We're starting these guys every week in matchup. I mean, regardless of matchup. But that may not be the case. You may be in a position where you end up getting, say, I don't know, J.K. Dobbins is a low-end RB2. Javonte Williams is a low-end RB2, where these guys are going to be matchup dependent. You're never super excited to start them, but they'll get the job done. That's not the same situation that we have here at wide receiver. So it's just how we go through and how we shape the roster down at the bench. I do like going ahead and making the one consolidated bet, though, and saying, you know what? The Baltimore Ravens offense is going to be better than anybody expects this next year. We're going to have Lamar. We're going to have Dobbins. We're going to have Bateman. And if that does happen, we're going to crush across the board. Now, Evan Ingram is also a tight end that I think you can start at the beginning of the season with the plans to have him throughout the entire year. But he's not Andrews. He's not Kelsey. He's not Hawkinson. He's not someone that we for sure know is going to be that for sure fire stud. So I am fine if you wanted to go through and roster a backup tight end. I mean, it's not something we have to do, but it kind of depends on the value, right? So if we're going to go ahead and check out the waiver wire options that we have with this team here. I mean, we have Jameson Williams, who I agree, we don't want to be rostering if we can't put him on the IR. Now, of course, if we could pick him up, then go throw him on the IR, I think that'd be a great spot. I agree, we don't want to roster Hyatt. We don't want to roster Chark. We don't want to roster any of these wide receivers. They're not really going to do anything for us, right? But going over to RB, I mean, these are some players that could be interesting if things were to break in their favor. Like in the case of Deonta Foreman, I expect Khalil Herbert to be the starting running back this next season in Chicago. But is that a guarantee? By no means is it. I mean, is there a 10% chance that Deonta Foreman turns out to be the RB1 and he actually looks startable at the running back position, similar to how he was last year in Carolina? That 10% chance exists. And what is beautiful about someone like Deonta Foreman is we're going to get clarity on that situation right away. So he would be the perfect guy to pick up, slide onto the bottom end of our bench, and if he looks to have a great role in Chicago, then we keep him. If not, if it's Roschon Johnson, then no harm, no foul. We got the clarity. We were able to figure that out, and we'll pick up the hot waiver wire guy after week 1. With Devin Singletary, another guy that we could roster and say, okay, minimum, he's a premium handcuff RB. If something were to occur to Dameon Pierce, he could potentially be an every week starter for us. Or maybe we just want to see what the role is going to be like and we want to have first dibs on him. But regardless, taking a shot on one of these RBs, whether that's Deonta Foreman, whether that's Devin Singletary, whether that's Clyde Edwards-Helaire, in my mind does give us somebody that possibly has a little bit of a higher ceiling on how he can actually make an impact on our roster in comparison to, say, I mean, Jacoby Myers, right? When we already have those elite level wide receivers. I think Myers definitely has a higher median projection, but if you're going to be looking at the bottom end of your bench, in your league where you're going to be active on the waiver wire, the median projection doesn't matter. The bottom end of your bench, the only thing that's going to matter is the highest ceiling possible, whereas it would be a little bit different in those underdog drafts, right? Underdog, best ball, Myers definitely matters, and you definitely care about his median projection. But that's because you don't have the waiver wire. That's because we can't churn these guys and constantly trying to find a new option. So specifically for that reason, my friend, I would go ahead, most likely look to move on from Jacoby Myers, pick up a running back, and hopefully we can play the waiver wire and just make sure that we have locked and loaded RBs in case Dobbins, Javonte don't work out. Now, throughout the rest of the roster, really like the team, really like the studs that we have at the very top. There are no clear trades, I think, that we should be making. I mean, if we could trade like Hopkins and Evan Ingram and go get Mark Andrews to pair up with Lamar Jackson, then of course we would, but I just don't necessarily think that we have the value or that's something that we're going to be able to pull off. But I think that's all I have for you. Again, thank you so much, my friend, for being a member of the flock. Really hope that we were able to help you out here in some way. Really hope you're able to get something from this. And as always, if there's anything I can do for you or any way that I can improve flockfantasy.com, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I would love to improve the site in any way that you can imagine. But yeah, thank you again for everything. And I think that should probably be it. We're going to go ahead and spend the next few hours breaking these down in personalized podcasts. and then I will get a live stream going of Underdog Fantasy Football drafts probably at, we'll call it 7 p.m. Eastern tonight. But of course, if you all want me to break down your team either in a live stream or a personalized podcast, you do that by signing up to flockfantasy.com with promo code FLOCK and the Mother Flocker tier. That's where you can find all my rankings. That's where you can find all my premium content plus all the premium content of your favorite fantasy football creators. And on top of that, with promo code FLOCK, not only are you going to get yours truly breaking down your fantasy football team, but you're also going to get 30% off any subscription. But I think that's all I have for y'all. Again, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I really, really do appreciate you, and really hope that I get to draft with you in the live stream later tonight in about 2 hours and 15 minutes.